We're all familiar with the movie The Matrix, right? There comes a point in the film where Keanu understands what reality is, he can see it, and now he can operate within it because he can see it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The same revelation is what is happening to women. Before we start talking about whatever that is, I want you to understand what has been happening for centuries. We can call it patriarchy, but I'm more inclined to call it mind control because essentially that is what it is. Now, the tools that they use to control, whether it's religion, guilt, societal pressure, brainwashing, gaslighting, all of those things have been used. The women before us lived within a reality. They knew that that reality fucking sucked. They knew they were working hard. Some of them were being physically abused. Some of them were being sexually abused. I was speaking to someone from my family this weekend, and I just could not believe all of the things that have happened to the women in my family. Our bloodline is filled with so much trauma, so much rape, so much molestation, so much pedophilia, so much abuse, so much of everything, and that's just my family. Now, here's the thing. When you are a woman and you live within this matrix, you are basically living inside a reality that you know could be better. And it's supposed to be better. But everything in your environment, the people who are in charge, men, people who are in control are saying, this is the way it is. Now, are y'all still with me? Now listen, this isn't a post where I am bashing men, but I feel like I just keep leveling up my understanding of what's going on. And what I'm about to tell you now is going to sound arrogant, but it's the truth. The men that I've given my time and attention to, my body to, shared my life with, tried to build with, they were not worthy. But I didn't know they weren't worthy because I was raised inside this matrix of patriarchy, and I have been putting men on pedestals who did not deserve to be there. And when you put someone on a pedestal, you start to ignore their imperfections, you start to ignore their character flaws, you start to ignore the things that you need to be paying attention to because it is telling you something about that man. But society has groomed us to be unconditional lovers. Society has groomed women so well that even when she is being treated poorly, when she is being cheated on, when she is being lied to, when she is having dreams about things that are actually happening, she doubts herself. She thinks she's crazy, and she thinks that it must be me. It must be her. Can you imagine? I want y'all to understand that your reality is how you perceive the world. And if how you perceive the world, if you are a heterosexual woman and how you perceive the world and how you perceive men, if it is distorted and you are putting them on a pedestal, you're always going to lose. One of the most painful things that I have ever experienced was understanding that the way I perceived one of my previous partners, the way I perceived him and the way that I perceived my world around him, that was the most painful lesson I had to learn because everything was right there in front of my face, but I doubted myself. And that's because I was being convinced that the things that I knew, they weren't true. So what's happening to a lot of women is, for centuries, we have been convinced that the awful things that happen to us aren't that awful. And the only reason it's awful is because you think it is. You are being talked out of your own sanity. You have been talked out of your own reality. And once you wake up and see the truth of it, you're free. You get to experience a liberation that generations and generations of women before you did not get to experience. Now, I suspect there were some women who knew and they saw it. Those were the women who were your aunties who didn't have children. Those were your aunties who didn't get married because they saw what the fuck was happening, but they didn't talk about it because they know that the world wasn't going to reflect their awareness back to them. Now, another thing, and I promise I'm done. We always want to attribute how a woman feels about men as a direct correlation to how she feels about herself. And I think that's a very valid thing, right? So we might say a woman puts a man on a pedestal and a woman gives so much to a man because she doesn't love herself and she doesn't value herself. Now, I think that is true on some level. But I don't think that's always the case. I'm tired of women being blamed for some internal deficit because we are perceiving the world in the way that the world has trained us to perceive it. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be a matter of me not loving myself. I just got to be in a space where I take a look and I say, oh, I see what the fuck is happening. And it clicks. And now I understand. The information and the knowledge keeps compounding and compounding. The more men I meet who I think, oh, this is a great man, and then I see his humanity and I see that I put him on a pedestal and he really isn't that great. How you perceive is everything.